Whew. Okay.
I can't wait till this is. Are we ready?
I think it's live.
Okay. All right. Welcome to our live event, College to Career, What I Wish I Knew. I'm going to introduce each person by name and then let them give an introduction of themselves, just a 15, 20-second introduction to help us know our panel better. So first we have Gene Hayes. He's going to introduce himself, and then Melissa Green and Kaylor Neild, and then Professor Mark Morris. So Gene, we'll let you start.
Sweet. Hey, so yeah, like she said, my name's Gene. I'm a graphic designer, and I graduated from BYUI a little over a year ago. And right now I'm in Salt Lake working at a trucking company doing graphic design and a little bit of marketing. And for the last few years, I've been designing a lot on the side, mostly making logos and helping small businesses with branding. And yeah, I love design. And yeah, I mean, that about sums me up.
Perfect. We're so glad you're here. Okay, Melissa, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Melissa Green. I graduated from BYU Idaho a little over a year ago, same as Gene. I graduated in elementary education, and I am currently teaching at Madison Middle School. I taught last year, and so I'm going into my second year of education and absolutely love it.
Good
So
for
I'm
you.
happy to help.
Great. Are you going to be able to go back in the classroom this fall?
Yes. As of now. Knock on any wood, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. All right, Kaylor, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Kaylor Neild. I currently live in Kimberly, Idaho, work in Twin Falls as a professional civil engineer for EHM Engineers. I graduated in 2014 from BYU, but previous to that, I spent 2 years at BYU Idaho. And I'm married. I got 4 kids and just enjoying my career right now and family.
Perfect. We're excited to hear more from you. And then Mark Morris, tell us about you.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be with you and pleasure to be with these wonderful panelists. My name is Mark Morris, and I currently teach in the business management department at Brigham Young University, Idaho. I have been here for about 6 years, and I've had a career for about 2 decades. I initially started at BYU, and then I lived in New York for a little while, and then Boston and Texas, and now the great state of Idaho. In my career, I've done a lot of consulting, and that has allowed me to work in lots of different industries, including airline, restaurants, hotel, mobile, and sports, just to name a few. I have a wonderful, awesome wife who's from the Orem area, and I have 6 great kids with ages range from 19 to 7.
Excellent. So as you can tell, we have a wealth of knowledge to draw from. I'm Teralyn Young. I am an adjunct faculty at BYU Idaho in the career exploration area, and I've taught there for 5 years, and it is my passion. So I'm grateful to be among these panelists and get some answers from them in terms of how to help our students and people in general transition from college to career and know how to prepare. So first, I want to ask all the panelists this question. That these questions have been given by students and people who are interested in this subject. So, and they're great questions. So to all our panelists, I'm going to ask you this question. What should I be doing right now in college to prepare for a career? Here's a couple of side questions. How do you find out about opportunities? Internships, societies, clubs, activities, and we'll focus on internships and more later. And then, so help us understand what we can do right now in college to prepare for a career. So, Kaylor, let's start with you.
Yeah, excellent question. The thing that you can do to start preparing for your career right now would be to, one, study your career. I mean, the things that I did when I was in college, I looked at the Bureau of Labor statistics and found out how many engineers, what the median income was, how many Idaho had, what the outlook was over the next few years, because I wanted to understand what I was getting into. So I spent a lot of time researching that, and then researching what civil engineers did. And then, like you said, you kind of brought up, we'll talk about internships more later on, but really exposing yourself to your industry. I was lucky, I knew what industry I wanted to go into when I started school. So I was able to focus that. But if you don't, then you just need to go and expose yourself to those industries by talking to people that are in those careers.
Perfect. Great answer. Gene, what about you? What advice would you give?
Yeah, similar to what Kaylor said, I think it definitely varies by what you're going into. But I think it helps to think about the long term, about what your field has to offer. Because even if you're sure about your major or what field you want to go into, there's usually so many different routes you can take it. And the sooner you have an idea of how you want to specialize or exactly what you want to do, the sooner you can start preparing for that. Because, I mean, I guess as a graphic designer, design's like a huge field. And if you go through your whole degree just thinking you want to be a graphic designer, then you might graduate and not have quite as much direction as you think you might have had. You could be making logos specifically. Maybe you want to work at an agency. Maybe you want to be just a freelancer. Maybe you want to design book covers. I mean, there's like all kinds of things you could do. And the sooner you figure it out, the better. And not that there's like a rush to figure things out like right away, but if it's on your mind, that's definitely a good thing. That'll get you on the right path.
And so did you always know that you wanted to do this particular thing, or did you find it along the way?
Yeah, I started just liking graphic design in general, though through some of my classes, I realized I especially liked logo design, which has led to me focusing on that in my own side business.
Okay.
And so,
your classes helped direct that as well.
Definitely, yeah. That, and then a lot of that was on my own too, where I initially learned about it in my classes, but then I had to dive into it a little deeper on my own.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. What about you, Mark? What advice would you give?
Thank you. I think what the other two panelists have said is spot on, and I think what I'd say to kind of complement that is just to experience your career and experience it now. Don't wait. And so a lot of times people think, I believe that, and we're trained this way because we've had 12 years prior to coming to college to think that success is in getting good grades. And although your grades can be important, many companies they say, hey, we have a bar in terms of what you have to cross in order to get in the company. And for a lot of companies, that's a 3.0, which is like a B minus average. And so the level of success and the measure of success has shifted when you become a college student to having experiences. And so if you look at a ranking of what companies value, experience is often number one, and your grades are actually number two or number three in that list. And so I would say experience your career. And that experience doesn't have to be a set 3 or 6 month internship. It might be a project that only lasts a month. Or something else that allows you to experience your career. But the most at bats you get, the more experience you'll get to understand what is most important to you and what value you can add as you grow in those experiences.
Fantastic. Would you include job shadowing in that?
For sure. And so one of the things you need to figure out is if you like what you're actually having a major in. And I think one of the best ways to do that at a low risk, low cost to you, but high return on your investment of time is to go and shadow someone and use your friends and family plan in that. So, talk to mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, bishop, etc., so that you can really connect with people who know and make sure they know that you're looking for these opportunities. And it's amazing who they can connect you with so that you can just see, hey, do I like this?
Yeah, that coincides perfectly with what Kaylor said as well, because that puts you in a position where you can talk to those people too in depth about questions that you have about the industry, the career, finding out all about that. Perfect. Melissa, tell us what advice you would give. What should they do to prepare for a career right now?
I think what's been said has been amazing, but to echo it, take your classes seriously, especially when it's bad in your career field. Take those seriously. Get to know your professors. Let's see, if you have an internship, I know in the LED program and the education program, we have things called practicums, which are the same as internships. Take those seriously.
And
that will help you learn. Yeah, try to grow. Pick brains from your professors, from your mentors.
okay, so you don't mean just get good grades. You mean go a little bit further for us. What do you mean?
Yeah. So, like, for example, don't just do the bare minimum, just to pass through. Like, take that time to really learn about what you're studying. These are the things that are going to help you in your future career. So if you're learning about how to write a lesson, really learn how to write a lesson, because if you're going to be a teacher, that's huge. Make sure you get that down. Just don't push it aside kind of thing, and just get it done.
Yeah.
My best advice.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, because I think what you're saying is don't learn for the grade, but learn for the wisdom and the experience.
Yes. Beautiful words. Yes. There we go.
Okay,
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I found through my internships and the work that I was able to do, it provided a lot more purpose to my learning in the classroom. So, we're talking about exposing yourself to your career or experiencing it, right? The more you can experience it, the more purpose it gives you in the classroom, because you're able to key into things that'll be more, that are going to be useful for you.
That's perfect. It's kind of a perfect cycle. As you learn, you're going to become better prepared to engage in internships and experiences, job shadowing, and then the job shadowing is going to make your classes probably come more alive. You're going to understand better what your classes are teaching you and what you're learning. So perfect. Thanks for adding that. Okay, Jean, I'm going to ask you to talk to us a little bit about networking. When do you begin? How do you start? How do you find those opportunities? So teach us about networking.
Yeah. So networking is, I think there's a lot included in just that word, but at least for me, and that's not to say that LinkedIn is everything networking is, but I think it is a lot of it, especially in 2020. And that's a lot of where I've done most of my networking. One thing I maybe wish I would have done different is start sooner, because even if you're not on the job hunt, if you spend your college career building relevant connections and expanding your network, you'll be more prepared once you are looking for a job. And you'll have so many people at your disposal who you can talk to. Something I like to do, especially in my first few years at school, was I would kind of go hunting for people on LinkedIn who were working jobs that I thought were cool. And so say I'd find someone working in some city at a really cool company, I would then look at what got them there. Like, what other jobs did they have until then? Where did they go to school? What else were they a part of? And I don't know what the term is, but I'd kind of work backwards and then see, okay, well, what can I learn from that so that I can get a cool job too when I'm at that point? And so just between that, which maybe that's not even networking, just stalking, I guess, but I'm doing a lot of that. We're doing a lot of that, and also talking to some people, like just asking questions, not being afraid about approaching people and being curious. I've built up tons of connections, and outside of LinkedIn, how I got my current job was by being a part of a lot of Facebook groups where people will post certain job listings that are relevant to my major. And I think it helps a lot to be a part of those communities, even if you're not actively searching, just so you're aware of what's out there, and just to continue connecting with people in your major and in your industry.
So how did you find those Facebook groups?
I think the one that got me my job was a pretty popular one, and I think it was just recommended to me or something. But then after that, I would search for certain phrases like Utah design jobs or Utah marketing jobs or whatever. And there's groups like that for most cities everywhere. Like they're already out there with thousands of people. And so, yeah, I think it's a great resource for sure, no matter where you're at.
That's also true for LinkedIn. There's so many great groups on LinkedIn under groups and jobs. So you use both of those resources for sure.
Absolutely.
There was a good question. They asked, how much should I focus on social networking? Tell us about that. Do you think your Facebook groups played more of a part than LinkedIn, or would you use them both equally? Tell us about that.
No, yeah, I think they both helped me in different ways. And so to answer the question, I think it depends on where your audience is. Like, who are you looking for? And so at least for me, LinkedIn helped me a lot with my own side business. I was able to connect with lots of business owners who maybe weren't hiring for full-time positions, but who needed some design work done. And I've been able to connect with them through that avenue.
Mm-hmm.
So Facebook is where I got my current full-time job. So I'd say if that's your main goal, I'd say there's still value in both, but to maybe just do some research as to the kind of people you want to connect with and just find where they're at.
Okay, perfect. Did you adjust your Facebook profile when you began this process?
Luckily I've been pretty tame on Facebook the last few years, so there wasn't too much to change. But yeah, definitely make sure it's professional and consider that people will be looking. For sure.
Yeah. Stalking is part of what happens now on that platform. On any of those platforms, we do some of that stalking before we connect, really.
Right. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's profound. Okay. Melissa, I wanted to ask you, there was a question that was phrased really interesting, I thought. It says, how do you know if the career or field you are pursuing is not too difficult for your own capabilities?
Okay.
How would you answer that question?
Well, first, college is difficult. Classes are difficult. That's normal. I'm a good mental health advocate, big into mental health. So my recommendation would be, if it is taking a strain on your mental health, you can't go to sleep because you're so stressed about it, or you're not finding joy in that, don't do it. I mean, I'm a teacher. We don't make very much. We don't get very much praise, but I love it. I love it. So that would be my biggest advice to someone is, it's going to be stressful. College is hard. But if you're losing sleep and you are sick, think about something else. Think about what you truly love.
Okay. Interesting. Does anybody else want to weigh in on that question? How do you know if the career or field you're pursuing is not too difficult for your own capabilities?
I would say look at the job description of what career it is that you want. That's something I did often to see, what was the daily tasks required of an engineer. Did those sound like tasks that I could accomplish, or that I could do? So, I mean, you really got to understand what your career is, and then you can do a self-evaluation of, one, if you enjoy doing those type of things, and two, if those meet the strengths that you have.
Yeah, I think that's really great. First of all, what Melissa brought up too, that you enjoy what you're doing. If you're taking classes, like in Jean's case, I don't know, I just envision you getting really excited to go to class when you finally discovered, I love doing logos. I love doing promotional things and helping people that way. And that class became very exciting for you. So that would be a good indication.
And, I mean, it's not to say every class was easy either. I mean, it's definitely hard, but then it's rewarding and you're still glad you did it. I think there's a difference there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. To add to that thought, first of all, Melissa, teachers are great. You're great. Just to give you a little praise there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very kind.
I really like. There's a book that's called Good to Great, and it's a business book, and it talks about how some companies go from being good to great in what they do. And in it, there's this concept called the hedgehog concept, in which a company has these three factors going for it. And you can apply that to a person, an individual. One is that you can make money to sustain your living at it, and that's important. Two is that your kind of your natural disposition is towards this career, and so there's some people who are built to do math. There are other people who aren't built to do math, or to read, or to write, or do other things. That doesn't mean you can't grow in that capacity, but some people are just kind of genetically, built to do those things. And then the final thing that they list is you have passion for that thing. You really love. You think about it. You in your spare time, you really like doing it. And I think that if you can combine those three things, you'll have some great success. I would like to just add a star there, a little caveat, in that there are certain things that you're passionate about. And in order to do that passion, you're going to have to do things that you're not naturally built to do. And that's okay, because if you have a growth mindset, you know that there are a lot of things that you could potentially accomplish if you set your mind to it. And I've definitely experienced that in my career. There are certain things, like, for example, I don't naturally love to read unless it's regarding business. I don't naturally love to run. I hate running. Oh man, someone says I love running, I think, man, I just can't relate to that love of yours unless there's a ball involved. Now, if you want to play football or basketball, I can run all day. And so there's this passion that drives me to do something, and I invite you to consider using your passion to drive you to do things you don't like.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And it makes me think that, everything I've ever done, every job I've done, I loved it, but it also made me a little bit afraid. It made me afraid to do that. It pushed me because it was outside of my comfort zone a little bit. There was a chance of failure. And so it always made me a little bit scared, but those are the ones that I cherish and value the most, are those experiences and work experiences, because of that, maybe my ability wasn't as strong as my desire. So I had to work hard to build up that ability. Thank you so much. Okay, Mark, in getting to know you earlier, you talked to us about how important your mentorship was. So the question is this, what is the purpose of a mentor? And what is the best way to find one? How many should I have? And how do I build a relationship without making the mentor feel used? So I thought that was a great question.
Yeah, those are good questions. Thank you. I think this relates heavily to the question around networking. And I would tell you that as you look to reach out to people, you have something to give. And so one of the things I think oftentimes students feel especially when they hear the word, networking or mentor, they think, I'm just using them, or I'm wasting their time, or it's not something that they want to do. When in reality, you have something to give. And I'll just share this story with you about a student of mine who he was a hunter, and we were talking a little about this, and I said to him, "You have something to give?" He said, "What do I have to give?" I said, "Hey, so what do you like to do?" And he said, "Well, I like to hunt and I like to fish." And I said, "Well, you know what? You actually live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. Literally, people fly from all over the world to come see this place. And as you interact with people that you're striving to connect with and build a relationship," I don't even necessarily like the word networking. I just call it a relationship. As you seek to build a relationship with them, think to give first. And one of the things you can say to them is, "Hey, I don't know if you're ever interested in coming to Yellowstone or Jackson, but I love to hunt and fish. I know some of the best hunting and fishing spots. And I'd love to take you hunting, fishing sometime if you'd like to. Now, you wouldn't say that necessarily to everyone, but if you had a connection with someone, you really could say that and mean it and look to give. Even if the only thing you give is a sincere thank you, you have something to give. Man, that was really great advice. Let me tell you how it helped me in my life. I was struggling with this, or I had a question about this, and I just want you to know I really appreciate you and your time and your example. We all need that. And so I invite you and wherever you're at in your career to look to know that you have something to give. The last thing I would say about mentors is they come in all shapes and sizes and ages. And so oftentimes I found personally that many of my mentors are older in my career than I am, but there are so many mentors I have that are my exact same age in my career. And one of the things that I think we can grow in as people is recognizing the good in people and the things that they can teach us. I say to my kids that a blade of grass can teach you something. It can teach you how to grow through adversity, like it grows through concrete, and as it grows to the sun, and that sun might mean more than just the sun sun. And so a blade of grass can teach you something. There are people all around us that can teach you something. Oftentimes in my meetings, I constantly write things down that my colleagues say. And not only do I write them down, I say, hey, thank you for saying that. This is what it meant to me. Being sincere and genuine about that I really think the easiest way to connect with people in a way that builds genuine relationships that will allow you to learn from them and also share with them and give back.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was thinking of that as well, that you can also be a mentor. Even as a freshman, sophomore, junior in college, you can be a mentor to someone else.
Yeah.
So give back, help them with answers to questions. And in that giving, oftentimes we get a lot more than we give. So,
oh my goodness, it's amazing how you and I interacted with a TA of mine just the other day, and we were just talking, and I learned that his father is this great political leader, and I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that about you. There's so many things people are worth getting to know. They just are. So I'd invite you to make that a habit. And if you're not good at that habit, that's okay. Just get a little better at it today.
Yeah, just practice. Practice. Okay, perfect segue into internships. I think that's because mentors often can help us find those opportunities. So, Kaylor, I'm going to ask you, why should we do internships? It sometimes feel like we're just working for free.
Right?
Yep.
Sometimes it can. I was lucky enough where I was able to get paid internships, but the value of the internship isn't always the money. A lot of times it's the experience that you gain and the understanding. Working for free for 3 months to be able to determine what career you want to go into is invaluable if you look at if you want to monetize the value of your career over 30 years, right? But it can be tough, and there's sacrifices that need to be made. My internships, I did 2 of them with a company, one in Utah and one in Arizona with the same company. They provided me a lot of direction on what I wanted to do with my career and what I didn't want to do. I actually, because of those internships, I steered another way. There's kind of 2 options in civil engineering. You can go into construction, which some people do, very few do, but that's something that always appealed to me. Or you can go into traditional engineering and do design work for an engineering firm. Those 2 internships, while I enjoyed them and I enjoyed the work, it didn't provide the lifestyle that I wanted for the future, right? So I steered away from that. And then finally, asking for an internship is how I got my job that I have right now, which is my dream job. I remember writing a paper when I was a sophomore in high school saying, where will I be in 10 years? and I can go back and check off almost every box. I'm doing what I wanted to do, so I feel very blessed. But I went into my employer, or my current employer, I went into them and I asked them, I said, hey, summer's coming up. This was December. I was home for Christmas break. I stopped in and I said, not knowing anybody, I pulled them up online, researched who was on the company because they have profiles, so I knew who I could be talking to. And I went in there and asked them if they had an internship. Well, it turns out they weren't necessarily looking for internships; they were looking for a full-time position. And so it's through that process that I interviewed a couple weeks later, and then I was hired full-time as soon as I graduated from college. So that's the value of internships, or at least approaching someone with those questions. You know, the worst they can say is no, so you might as well get in their office and ask them.
Yep. Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because I tell my students that all the time. We've been told no along all our lives. We'll be okay. We can handle some more no's. We'll be all right. That's awesome. Right. So both Mark and Kaylor, you've had 2 internships, and then Mark, you've had several as well. Maybe tell us, Mark, really briefly, your experience with internships, and then I'm going to ask you both to answer, how do I find the right one, and how many should I do?
Well, I had 5, and the reason I had so many is not because I was super bright, but because someone just said, "Hey, you should do this," and I said, "Okay." And I came to learn that all of them were within my field of study, but I didn't love all of them, and it was like dating to me, in that I feel like you hope to get married to something you love, but I didn't love that job, and so. It wasn't only until the 4th one I said, "Oh man, I love this. I could do this for the rest of my life." And then the 5th one was to help me get a better job in that 4th one. And I don't know many of us that would sign up and say, "Hey, I'm happy to date one person, and then I'm happy to marry someone else that I've never dated." But that's the equivalent of not doing any internships, and so I really invite you to really try to figure that out so that you can learn what you love.
So I want to clarify and make sure I understand. So you did 3 that you weren't sold on, 3 in different areas. Is that
they're
right?
all within my major. So they all have to do with communications marketing. But I didn't. I liked them. They're good people, fun. Some of them were amazing, but I didn't say, "Man, this really clicks with me and what I can see myself doing all day, every day." Because truth be told, you don't want to be married to your job, but you literally spend 8 to 10 to 12 hours a week at your job, more time than you do with your family oftentimes. And so if you don't love it, man, life is miserable, both there as well as when you get home. You're grumpy, you're upset, you're stressed. But if you can love what you do, it makes life so much easier. And so I invite you to try to figure that out.
I'm going to throw this question out there. Do you all love what you do every day? Go ahead.
I do.
Every day. Is there any
every day. I love it, but not every day necessarily.
Yeah, no, not. I think there's good in every day, but not every day is amazing. But I think that's real life.
Yeah. Gene, what would you say?
Yeah, I think if you can love it like overall, then I think that's good, but that's not going to mean you're going to love every single task you ever have to do in your job. Like sometimes there's things that you just have to do and there's no way around it. So the best you can do is just try to understand it and have a good attitude about it, and then it'll just make the whole experience better. So I think that's the case for most jobs probably, but yeah, definitely for me.
Yeah, I think sometimes we get nervous because if we begin a position and then all of a sudden a hard day comes along, we think, "Oh, this isn't for me."
Yeah.
And that's just not true. It's going to be hard all the time. And sometimes those hard times are what, again, become most meaningful in some ways. We learn the most and stretch and grow the most. So
I feel like this. I love basketball. I love playing basketball. I hate doing ladders.
There you go.
And so, but in order to be good at basketball, I need to be in shape. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. I hope we've gotten all the information about internships we need to know. So how many would you recommend they do? Do you think there's a set limit for internships?
I would say yes and no. If you look at the positions that you're trying to get, oftentimes they say X amount of years of experience or X amount of experiences. And so I would say look at those and that should give you some guidance. And then I would also say do them until you find one that you love. Now I say do it unconventionally. So you might not do 5 3-month internships. You might do 3 1-month internships and in one summer, but just kind of a speed dating approach that allows you to do something of significance, something that would allow you to say I added value, but also so that you can learn about the career.
Yeah, fantastic. What do you say to that, Kaylor?
I say, I'm going to change the question about it. When should we start having internships? I think is important. And I think the earlier, the better. And that'll allow you to get more. You only need as many as you need to find the career that you want. But the way I see it is try to start that as early in the process as you can. If you know that you want to go into a certain field, go talk to a business or go network in that field and ask them if there's, they might not have an internship for you, but maybe you could answer phones there or file papers or do something.
Yeah, it sounds like we've lost him for a second there. Jean, did you have to do an internship?
Yeah, my major did require one. Yeah, and I ended up doing. Yeah, I did the one. So yeah, that's something I definitely wish I did more of, but I did do the one. Yeah.
Cool, fantastic. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
We want to learn from the bad experiences too.
Yeah.
So, okay, awesome. All right, Melissa, in getting to know you better, you said you love interviewing. So we're going to call on you as our interviewing expert. What's the best way to prepare for an interview? And what do you do when you come across a question that you don't know how to answer or you don't have experience in? What do you do?
Okay. Yeah, so I think the best way to prepare is online. There's so many different things online. When I was interviewing for my job, I just looked up common questions people ask teachers, like in interviews, and there was hundreds. And I just played myself like devil's advocate kind of thing. I just asked myself questions or had my husband ask me questions. I love to be prepared. I don't think you can ever be too prepared. So ask yourself questions. And I think when you do that and you're preparing, it brings in confidence too. And your interviewer will be able to see that confidence for sure. So just ask yourself random questions or go to professors, ask questions, because a lot of them have actually sat in on a few panels for interviews. One thing I learned about my professors. So yeah, I started preparing a few days before my interview. I even made a binder. I mean, you can never, as long as it's healthy, you can never be prepared. Yeah, I know. Tara knows me personally.
You're not Leslie Knope level of binders from
No, she's way up here. We can't do her.
Good. I was worried about your mental health for a second. But
no.
So I appreciate the fact that you said that you researched questions, common questions asked of teachers. So you can research based on the career you're interested in. That's really interesting. I had never considered that idea. Definitely get online and look at common questions for interviews, but specific questions to the professions, careers, industries that you're going into. I think that's so great. And then definitely practice, right? Practice.
Yes. And I think my biggest, first off, you asked if you don't know an answer to a question. No one knows everything at all, especially when you're beginning. I think there's nothing wrong with saying, I am not sure of how I would respond or what my answer is, but I look forward to learning or researching, or I would be interested in hearing your perspective. And I think that shows that you're coachable, you're teachable.
Yeah. And the way you answered that too builds more of a connection with the interviewer. Yeah. I'd be interested in how you would respond to that. I mean, you never want to go back to that again and again and again, but one interview would be really impactful, I would think. Do you have any other insights on interviewing?
Yeah, my biggest advice for interviewing is to just make it a conversation. They're people just like you. They're not robots. You're not a robot. Just make it a conversation. No one wants to hire someone, who isn't very likable, right? Yeah. And doesn't have that connection. So I think be personable, make some jokes, appropriate jokes, of course. But make those connections.
Cool.
Sorry, if I could jump in real quick about interviewing. Yeah, one thing that's helped me is to remember that it seems like they're interviewing you, but you should think about it as you interviewing them just as much.
Yes.
Like, I've had some jobs where I walk out and I realize, okay, I mean, I think I answered everything right, but there's things that I learned about the company that made me realize maybe it's not for me. And so it's just as much them looking at you as you seeing if it is right for you.
Yeah. So and the way that you learned that there's some things about the company or the people who work there or the atmosphere or whatever it is, and the way you learned about that is probably you went prepared with some questions to ask them about things that you value, things that matter to you, the work environment. So I'm so glad you brought that up too, because it's a dual interview. You're there to see if that's something that you want to give 30 years of your life to, or however long that's going to be. Yeah. Any other insights, Kaylor, Mark, on interviewing?
Well, I think that's a good point. You're both interviewing each other, right? I mean, they're trying you on and you're trying them on. And so it's got to be a fit both ways.
Fantastic. Okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the last thing I'd say to that is, they want a good interview too, because oftentimes when you're interviewing, they're interviewing a lot of people, and they want a good experience, and so just having a good experience with you that's memorable, and that they actually have a list of questions often, but they don't want to ask those questions because they've asked them a million times. They'd rather talk about your drawing or your experience that you did with your internship or something else that's really interesting about you. So. Make it interesting.
I think if we fake it through an interview, then when you go to work, do you have to keep being fake? Or, you know what I'm saying? Just be yourself. And if it's not a good fit, you don't want it anyway. You don't want to work there anyway. So, all right. So a couple of things I want to know about are now we're going to talk about getting into the actual career. So I thought there was some interesting questions here. First of all, and maybe we've covered this a little bit, but where do you go to look for a job? Where do you go to look for a job? Maybe, Jean, we had you answer that just a little bit. You were on Facebook groups, right? Did you use any other avenues?
You just have to look everywhere. I mean, like Facebook is huge, definitely LinkedIn, but some of those more specific platforms, employers don't post to all of them because sometimes it costs them money too. And so just the big ones, you can search Glassdoor, Indeed, just Google. And I mean, sometimes I'll look into companies I'd like to look for and just check their website specifically, because sometimes they'll put things up there without even shooting them to the other recruiting sites. And so, just anywhere you can, for sure.
Okay, Melissa.
Job fairs.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad. Tell us your experience with that.
Yeah, that's how I got my job, was at a job fair. I was student teaching, and Madison School District had an open, I can't remember what they called it, but it was like a job fair. And so I just went with my pile of resumes and went and talked to a bunch of different principals. And there they told me about jobs that were opening. And I was able to have like that mini little interview too. With one principal, was like, you need to come in and interview for this. So
That's,
job fairs, they are intimidating at times. They, right? 'Cause there's so many other people and there's so much going on, and sometimes you feel like you're competing with the person right next to you. But get yourself out there.
yeah. And if you practice, you can go
Yes.
several times. You don't go to one and done. Oftentimes,
No.
and I know at BYU Idaho, we have them twice a year. Is it twice a year? I think. And we should be practicing from the get-go, going every semester or every time they have one, and talking to people, getting your resume out there, practicing and getting ready for that. So, okay. So, how do you, okay, let's ask this. What are businesses looking for in recent graduates? Is there anything particular, now that you're all gainfully employed, is there anything particular that you would say you would be looking for a candidate or a recent graduate, or that your company or business does? So I'll just open that up to all of you.
At our office, we look for, the schoolwork is a given, right? Everybody can check that box. Everybody, for the most part, I went to school to be a civil engineer. I showed up to a civil engineering firm. That's kind of a standard. It shouldn't be surprising, but what they look for is, how well do I fit the company culture?
Mm-hmm.
Am I easy to work with? Can I communicate well? What have I done outside of education? How much experience do I have? I think those are probably the two biggest things that we look at now is, do you fit the culture of the company, and do you have previous experience? And it's not always important to have previous experience. It's very useful because there's some things that can be trained on the job. So how willing or how teachable are you going to be on the job as well?
Yeah, excellent answer. Anybody else want to chime in? Gene, do you have anything to add to that?
I do. Yeah. Kind of piggybacking off of what he said. Yeah. Everyone goes, or most people go to school. And so you really need something that will set you apart from everyone. And so at least in the communication and design field, everyone's got portfolios full of student projects. But what really sets you apart is when you've done things on your own or for other clients, basically things going beyond the bare minimum that you're required to do. Because that's where you really grow, and it shows that you're passionate and really care about it.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Yeah. So you've done additional, whatever it is, projects or experiences outside of the requirements of the university or outside of the requirements of your degree. It helps you know that you think outside of that box.
Yeah, and I think it helps you be seen as more than just a student or a graduate. And I think lots of people who are starting to graduate, I think they still see themselves as a student. Like, you'll look at their LinkedIn and it'll say, student, like their headline. Like, I've seen some people on LinkedIn with headlines like aspiring marketer. And it's like, you can just say you're a marketer. Like, it's inspiring forever. Even if you haven't landed your dream job yet, if you can just position yourself as, I'm a marketer, but I'm a professional and I can do these things, and here's what I've done. I think that makes a difference.
Oh, I love it. That is that profound, both of you. Anybody else want to add anything? Okay, we're going to ask Mark and Kaylor specifically, but feel free to jump in. How do you balance all aspects of your life now? What if one area is requiring more time and attention than the others? How do you find balance? Let's start with Kaylor, and then we'll go to Mark.
I'm blessed. Usually my wife tells me if I'm spending too much at work, right? That's one way to gauge it is how your family's doing, right? And because that seems like the most difficult thing for me is balancing work and family, because sometimes work can be very demanding and require a lot of emotional or mental energy from you. So you come home and you're kind of spent, right? Yeah. And so the important thing is quality time. there's not going to be a right answer. Sometimes you're going to be really lopsided. Like right now, I feel like my life is lopsided on work because there's a lot of projects going on. And so the time that I have at home, I have to make it more efficient and more meaningful with my family. And you can read people, you can read your kids, and you can kind of read your boss or your projects or your wife, and get a feel for how they're doing and if they need more time with you. And so I don't know, that's kind of how I approach it. But it's never 100, you never have everything balanced at the same time. It kind of, for me, it feels like focus on one, then you go to another.
Yeah, it's always kind of a teeter-totter, huh? There's no perfect center there. Yeah. So, all right, Mark, enlighten us.
Yeah, I love that thought in connecting with your spouse. I feel that I said a loud amen in my head when he said that. I feel like just like there's a dashboard on your car, we can have dashboards or measures in our life that will help be key indicators of where our focus is and if we're getting off balance. And for some of those, they might be, hey, am I doing my scripture reading like I should? Or am I saying my prayers? Or am I going out with my significant other? Or have I done something to spend some time with this child? And I think those measures, just like you have measures in your work and your career, need to happen in your life. And it's important to ask yourself, am I spending the time on that which matters most, which often doesn't give you an immediate response. Unlike, hey, if I do this good job at work, I might get more money, or I might get more praise, or I might get this promotion. But it really is a long-term investment, and having that perspective really, really matters. So I would say that putting in the right dashboards to kind of measure your proper success is really, really important.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that honestly, asking yourself and then asking them, like Kaylor said, asking your wife, am I doing enough? Asking your kids, are we spending enough time together? What do you need from me? And then can gauge it that way as well. So interesting, fantastic answers. Okay, let's wrap it up. We're getting on the hour here. So I'm going to ask all of you, and we'll start with Melissa, just put her on the spot here. But I thought this was a really interesting question. I like questions that make me think. And so I'm going to ask you to each answer this question. What is the best career or what is the best and the worst career advice you've been given? So I think that's interesting. And I hate to call on Melissa first, but you're on my screen first. So I'm going to call on you.
Yeah. No, I think the worst career advice I've been given is just to settle when it becomes like when you see something that becomes easy, like take the first job, even if it doesn't feel right, just because it's your first job, just take it. Right. Which I'm glad, because I always wanted to be a teacher for the little, and I had jobs to teach like the first or second grade, but I wanted something else. And I wanted experience, and it led me to sixth grade. So I'm glad I didn't just settle to what was normal or what I thought. I put myself out there. Let's see, the best advice I've been given. Been given a lot. I think it's just to, especially the first few years of your job and your experience, is to be coachable. You're not going to learn everything in college. In fact, you'll get into your career, at least this is how I felt. Got into my career, got on my own, and it scared me. I had no idea. Everything just left. But I think to go reach out, ask for help, and trust yourself. You did those 4 years. You got here. So trust yourself, be teachable, reach out to others.
Fantastic. I love that. Getting into the first few even weeks of your career going, they didn't teach us this. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, even
I
I'm
have
still
no idea.
learning stuff.
Yeah, but that's exceptional to be teachable because you're going to need to ask a lot of questions. Let go of that pride of I've got to
Yeah.
be perfect right out of the gate and be teachable. So,
Yeah, you won't be perfect.
yeah.
If you are, I would love to meet you.
Yeah. And I love the idea of don't settle. And I see this often that students will say, will pack their schedules with easy classes instead of taking this valuable learning experience to increase and better ourselves by adding breadth and depth to our degrees by taking some harder classes. Again, it's that scary factor. It makes you feel better about yourself once you accomplish those hard things. So, yeah. Okay, Jean, you're up. Best and worst advice.
Yeah, so I'll try to combine them kind of into a single thing because I can't think of specific advice, but I know I feel like there's two groups of people I've met, and some people like to really walk on eggshells and be careful when they're applying for jobs or talking to people, and then some people like to be really assertive and follow up all the time and really go after it. And I think you can definitely find the right balance, but for me, I found it's always better to lean more on the assertive side. Like if you're thinking about, ooh, should I follow up with this interviewer, or maybe they'll think I'm too pushy. I always would rather be seen as too pushy than not pushy enough, and maybe that push was exactly what you needed to be considered. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely a balance, but best advice I've gotten is to just not be afraid. Follow up, message that random person on LinkedIn. Just don't be afraid of being seen as weird or pushy. I mean, I think there's a way you can do it.
Yeah, I've been a hiring manager before, and I've actually been in the position where I've interviewed so many people, my brain is so tired, I can't think anymore. And so the first person who follows up gets the job. It just happens. Yeah. And so I appreciate you saying that because it doesn't, I don't think in most circumstances anyway, it could hurt.
Yeah.
It could hurt. Do it in a gentle, kind way.
Right. Of course.
Yeah, definitely follow up. That's awesome. Okay, Mark, tell us your best and worst advice you've ever been given.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting question. I appreciate you asking it because I've never thought about this much before. I would say the worst advice I've ever been given is I can't do it. So someone doubting my ability to actually do something to overcome that problem, which I have many of and have had to overcome, or that I shouldn't apply for that job because it's too hard for me, or go and take that opportunity because I won't succeed. And there have been many naysayers, and I failed many times, but I think I'd rather be a trier than a doubter. And because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I think the self-doubt is probably one of the worst things that people have given me advice about. The best thing, I think, is to include my faith in my career. So I'm a person of faith. I deeply believe in God. I feel like He's everything. And has given me everything, and making that an integral part of my career has been very valuable, and it's been valuable in helping me do well. It's also been valuable in helping me not get things that weren't good for me, and that's been a great blessing in our life, and the life of my family. One of the things I really appreciate about for example, moving to some of the areas I've moved to is when it was less affluent, when there was less money, and we could focus on family and not on material things. But I'm not saying you need to stand on a pulpit and preach fire and brimstone. I'm not saying that at all. But being really prayerful about the decisions I make in my career, making my wife a part of those prayers, my mom, my dad, and my family to fast and pray for me as I do things, When there's a difficult decision at work, getting on my knees and thinking about it, it literally has made all the difference. And so making sure that you include your faith in your career, I think is vital for you to be successful in the way that you can be happy with yourself and take advantage of things you can't anticipate, but God can.
Oh yeah, be brave enough to take those risks too. I think that's so profound to include him in your decision making, because going back to your gauges idea, he's going to help you balance that. I think you include him in that decision making and in your everyday processes. So thank you for bringing that up. All right, Kaylor, you bring us home.
Okay, I'd kind of like to highlight a few things. I don't know if I don't remember any bad advice that I received, but what I'd like to highlight is that voice in your head that says that you can't do it or that it might be too hard. That's a real voice. We all experience it, right? There's things that overwhelm us in life, but I want you guys to listen. You can do hard things. Okay, everybody can do hard things. So make a goal that's going to make you stretch, that's within your capabilities, and do it. You can do hard things, and usually, for me, the harder it is, the more satisfaction I have when it's complete. Right? It provides a little bit of meaning in my life, and so find something in life that's challenging that provides you meaning. And when you have meaning in your life, then you can have some peace in your life. Everything might not be going okay, but you feel like life is headed in the right direction. So that would be my advice: is know that you can do hard things. And I don't feel like I have all the talent in the world, but I'm pretty stubborn and I'm willing to work hard at it. Right. And so I'm willing to, I can outwork anybody, because that's a decision I can make. Right. And so don't be afraid to work hard. If I could just follow up, there was someone had a question about if I went through school again as a civil engineer, what I would change.
Oh.
And there's two things that I'll comment on real quick. And yeah, there it is right there.
Okay.
One, I'd pay attention in my drafting classes. And actually, that was my first semester, and I graduated 5 years later. And so I would pay attention in my drafting classes and know how to draft. So keep that skill polished, because you might be doing some of that on the front end of your career or throughout your career. Second, I would pay attention in my 200 level classes: strength of materials, statics, dynamics. Those are kind of foundational to engineering, and so pay attention to those, because those don't go away. And then, of course, as you get closer to your 400, and if you can take some 500 level classes, make sure you have purpose in them, and that they're going to. I was able to take a couple extra classes my last semester. I only needed a few credits to graduate, but I took 3 extra classes because they were going to be beneficial to my career. And so make sure you pick electives that fit with what you're going to do. So.
Yeah, definitely. So what I hear you saying is take those classes seriously, because you're going to need them later on.
That's right. That's right.
Because unlike geometry in my life, I don't use it anymore.
I still need geometry and algebra. I don't use a lot of calculus, but
yeah, anyways. I agree so much with what you said about everyone can do hard things. But I think there is that caveat there that my hard things are different than your hard things. So don't compare.
That's right.
You just set that goal for yourself and say, this is something that's difficult for me. I'm going to stretch to reach that. And it really is where that's when you work towards that, it even fail and try again, that's where your self-esteem comes in. You'll feel better about yourself. It's more meaningful to you. You work harder. That's how I feel about my stats class. So I did it, and I don't care about any other class. I did it. It was
That's
awesome,
right.
and I did it. Okay, well, I appreciate all of you joining us. I think we've gained some very valuable information. I appreciate you so much. Before we do end this, we do have a drawing for an Echo Dot, and we also have a drawing for some headphones. And so we want to, I guess, do that now. I'm assuming. All right. So Jeff Castillo,
Yes.
the winner of the Echo Dot. Thank you for being with us, Jeff. Did we want to do the drawing for the headphones as well? Or are we going to do that a different way? I'm not quite sure what we decided on that. Maybe we'll do that afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate you all being here and all of your information. And have a great 4th of July.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
And thank you to Kinsey Goley for putting this all together.
Yes. Yeah. It was
Yes,
awesome.
thank you.
Kinsey.